the cloud. Sweet. We'll give one more minute, let people trickle in. Okay. We'll share Chrome tab. Okay, let's get rolling. Hello. Welcome to another Gateway Inference Extension open source meeting. It is July 10th, 2025. For those of you attending live, this is being recorded and uploaded to YouTube. We've fixed that, so it will be up there now. So please follow the CNCF guidelines, which basically just means be polite and nice. If you want to be mean, do it where you're not recorded. Don't do it at all, but do it where you're not recorded for sure. Anyways, starting off, I think we have Shane with the AI Gateway Working Group proposal. Let's jump right in. Shane, floor is yours. Do you want co-host?
No, that's okay. Well, we'll just stop and see if anybody has questions. This working group proposal has been floating around since like February, and I wasn't sure where it was going to go, but a month or so ago, probably 2 months ago, I know I shared it with several people here, and it just kept getting shared, and people kept pinging me about it, and it became pretty clear that there was a lot of interest. So the outpouring kind of pushed me to finally go ahead and make the official working group proposal after some rounds of like reviewing with people and kind of checking in. And the first link is to the request to make the working group. Second link was to the SIG network thread. And the third one is the actual document, which was like the originating document, which is the definition of. The idea with the AI Gateway working group is that there's a whole lot of stuff in the space of what is very unfortunately named AI Gateway. Like AI Gateway is an unfortunate name. I think it's even mentioned in the document that it's an unfortunate name, but it also resonates with a lot of people working in the space right now, so they kind of know what they're getting into if they see that name. This is at the center of like just trying to see what's next. Like GIE has solved it solves the problem of like doing the final routing decision to your backend model serving. And we've talked in GIE, and I know like there's a couple threads and issues about like, would we expand more into what we would call AI gateway features? So like there's one thread about doing like semantic routing and stuff like that. And it occurred to me, and I guess several other people, that we really need to take a step back and really look at all these features. Some of them are huge, and decide, do we actually want to do them? And how do we want to do them? Where should they be done? This kind of thing. So that's what this is all about, is about kind of exploring that further, taking a focus group to explore that further and see where it ends up. And how it gets done is kind of open to interpretation. I put in the document that I don't know if it's actually written exactly like this in the document, but if everything ends up being a GIE proposal, that's fine. But we get the side benefit of, and you'll see it from the list of people that are on the mailing list there, the people who signed up to be like leads. We have some people that haven't really been at the table yet. And in previous conversations here in the GIE sync, we've talked about how like one of the things that we need to do is like outstretch the arm a little bit further to make Kubernetes an even stronger, more obvious place for AI ML workloads to like be the place to do AI ML workloads, and that is something that we maintain in the years. So like bringing more people in, having more inclusion, having more perspectives is important to that. And a working group opens up the door for like more people who maybe haven't been at the table so far to come in, join in, and like have their voices heard, their perspectives included. So that's a big aspect of it, as well as just like basically outreaching that arm. I'm really hoping that we don't have the one thing that's got me kind of troubled with it so far is that we don't quite have strong engagement from anybody doing Nginx yet. We do have some engagement from people doing OpenResty. And so that's one of the things I'm going to be working on, because that's one of the things we've talked about here before, is like trying to get some coverage from Nginx, since it's one of the bigger proxies out there. But we do have coverage from like Linkerd. Flynn from Buoyant is interested, and a couple of different areas. I wouldn't be shocked if like Etan, Yarmush, and John had some interest from the perspective of like the agent gateway at some point. I'm not really sure because I don't know much about that project yet, but I wouldn't be shocked if they came into the fold and said, oh, well, we'll be interested in talking about this, and that would be good too. So that's probably enough to say about it. If there's any specific questions about it, though, I'd be happy to, or like clarifications, I'd be happy to do that. But it's pretty much the same doc that's been shared around for like 3 months.
When do you expect meetings to kick off for this?
I'm kind of looking at like some of the other working groups, and I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but there's like 4 freaking AI working groups, and I think that we need to just stop dancing around it and just make SIG AI and get over it. But I'm not going to try to start that fight right now. So I think everybody's like, we don't want to do SIG AI, but I think the reality is it's going to happen at some point. But for the moment, there's a bunch of working groups related to this, and they seem to be taking like a couple weeks to get started. So let it soak in the mailing list, get some more buy-in, potentially some more. It looks like SIG storage might have some interest, and there may be some other SIGs that would be interested. You know, give it some time to try to get more sponsorship from SIGs. See who else is interested. Maybe a week or 2 we would put in the PR to actually get things rolling, and then meetings could start before the end of the month potentially. So rough estimate, before the end of the month we might start meetings.
Cool. And sorry, Danny, and I realized I completely missed your hand.
No worries at all. Just curious to know, so would Inference Gateway then transition from the serving working group to this working group, or no?
Maybe. I'm open to interpretation.
Sorry, I missed that. What was the question answer? It seemed important.
I'm trying to understand if, right, this project, Inference Extension, it would, right, it's currently part of the serving working group, right?
Oh, okay, I misunderstood you. Do you guys actively report to the serving working group still?
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then yeah, I think we should probably have that conversation. I mean, I think that'll partially be up to y'all, but it may make sense to have this working group handle that. Except the only thing about that makes me a little weird is that I don't take this the wrong way. I think the serving working group has this really big scope, and this working group is trying to exit soonish. Like, we don't want this working group to be a multi-year working group. We want it to be a classic working group where it's like kind of classic and focused. So I think the answer is still like maybe, but just to put a finer point on things, I think the working group serving has been running for a while and probably will be running for a while, whereas this one should probably be a more focused thing that ends in an obvious exit of like, here's the criteria that we need to meet to exit. So is it not the case that at this point the GIE is established, there's multiple users, it doesn't necessarily need a working group anymore, but it instead can just be officially SIG network? I don't know. We'd have to talk.
Yeah,
there's all different kinds of rules for this stuff too that I never remember.
Yeah, no, I tend to think of this as primarily a sub project of SIG network, and you know, updates to working group serving are nice, but not, it's not as tightly coupled anymore. Is my view of the world, but I could be wrong there.
Yeah. But in the spirit of it, in the spirit of like staying connected to the working groups, there's a whole clause in the document about like we need to stay in communication. So like this is kind of why I brought up the SIG AI thing, because I think it just needs to happen at some point. There's a lot of disconnect, like little pieces everywhere, and that is a problem with creating yet another AI working group. Is like it's kind of there's lots of different moving parts, and we're not all well connected yet.
Yeah. To be clear, I see that I see how we are probably headed towards SIG AI, but it makes me nervous for the sake of
Shudder.
a project like this, because
Yeah.
like, where do we, SIG Network is nice because it's clearly the best host for us. If SIG AI exists, I don't know what, like
Joint ownership or something. I don't really know.
like, do we have joint ownership? Anyway, sorry, I've gone off track.
Yeah, we have gone off track.
I do really want to cover here is one of the things we've been talking about as a not too distant future for this project, Gateway Inference Extension, is multi-cluster support. And multi-cluster starts to feel an awful lot like, overlapping with the concept of an AI gateway. I don't know how we want to handle that, but we're starting to, there's non-trivial overlap, I think, in the future for these. And I guess that's fine, because AI Gateway as a working group doesn't actually own any APIs or it just helps guide discussion. So maybe that's fine. I just want to make sure that, that continues to make sense in this project. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and there's lots of connective tissue already. So like both Nir and Kellen, thank you for agreed to be leads on that, which was partially to make sure that we have the connective tissue here for things like that. What we need though is a little bit more connection from other SIGs to help make sure that we're not missing opportunities for these kinds of oh, here you'll love this word, synergies, right? Between different projects and different scopes and everything that everybody's trying to do. So yeah, it's kind of a mess across the SIGs right now, the whole AI spectrum. But I'm hoping that we can be part of helping make that a little better by just making sure that we have really good communication and a really focused work group goal, like really tight scope.
Nir, you can go ahead. I'll go next.
Yeah, so I think the multi-cluster, Rob, you mentioned it a few times in the past. It's an interesting idea. Just wanted to mention, so I think I already mentioned it in the past. I do have some connections with multi-cluster projects, CNCF projects, that I worked with them closely in the past. So maybe we can there is SIG multi-cluster, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, we've
we
engaged
can
them a few times over the years for Gateway.
Yeah. So maybe we can, like, I don't know, think of a concrete proposal for anything that might be interesting for them, and try.
I started on a really rough doc. I should share it more broadly, but I haven't, because it's not like it's pretty rough right now. But yeah, give me before we meet next, I'll try to have it something like on the agenda. And I agree, we should loop in SIG multi-cluster and really get this moving. But I think I've already given the pitch for multi-cluster and why I think it matters here. I think just generally the idea is that many users are unable to get all the resources they need in a single cluster, whether that means a single environment, data center, cloud, region, zone, whatever, and being able to scale this across multiple clusters can, I think, be really powerful. And also I think that the further we go with multi-cluster, the reason I brought up AI Gateway here is that I think that eventually clusters, become not too different from other managed providers, which is what I think, if an AI gateway is primarily about routing to managed providers or scaling, bursting to other providers, and multi-cluster is about bursting to other clusters, there's non-trivial overlap here in the concepts. Sorry. Kellen, I think you're next.
Cool. Yeah. Just a little bit change of topic. I see that the working group has the definition of done at the conclusion. I just wanted to get estimates, and I see the term completed proposals. So kind of curious what you imagine the timeline to be. Again, speculation, and also when we say completed proposals, do we mean the proposal is complete, or the work that the proposal defines is complete?
It kind of depends, obviously, because one of the things, as a SIG lead, one of the things I want to do is not drive so much. I want to let all the experts, like, I mean, I worked on an AI gateway before, but my purpose is I want to let the experts kind of figure out what is actually the common stuff between their implementations and what are the things that users actually need on Kubernetes that needs to be done in upstream. And we don't have a definition of that yet, so it's hard to estimate. But assuming that like we do just focus on a few of these specific features that we mentioned in the document, I would like to see a turnaround where we can figure out like having proposals for those features done and at least into like let's say for instance they all went into Gateway API, just for instance. They're probably not going to all go into Gateway API. In an experimental state before the end of the year would be nice, but it's probably asking a lot. So I don't know. I'd like to think we're pretty clear on exiting in terms of like figuring out where our scope is, having a plan, and saying this is where what AI gateway means for upstream Kubernetes, and we have proposals that are covering that definition and giving users the things that they need. I would love to think that we'd be done by next summer, like actually done, and be exiting the working group. So like a 1-year turnaround, that would be great. I think that's doable.
Okay, cool. We do still have this time bound for 5 more minutes if anyone has any other topics or questions. Cool. Let's move right along. Nir, you're up.
Yeah. So we have the new config API. I wanted to share some things. So basically, Shmuel from IBM worked on this on implementation of this feature. He's out on vacation, and I'm completing his work on using the config API. So I wanted to share a bit. What does it mean? How does it look? I have a branch with almost ready, so it's going to be soon in a PR. But I do think it's worth sharing before, so that people who are here in the meeting or who are watching the video, they have some basic explanations. What should they expect and how does it look? So let me see. Can I share my screen and show you some nice example?
You can now.
Yeah. Okay. So let me share my screen. Okay. So basically, as of today, we have 2 configurations of the scheduler. One is the classic one that we have with the decision tree, and the new one is what Song worked on the prefix cache and some scorers. This was done lately, and it's still under some comparison. So Song is working on comparing that the new version is better or at least equal in terms of performance to the default one before we remove the default plugins configuration. So as of today, we do have 2 different configurations. You can see it here. I have scheduler default and I have scheduler v2. And once we finish graduating the v2, we would probably have only 1 entry in the config map. So this is an example of how a config looks like. We don't need anymore to have environment variables with scorers, weights. We don't need to initialize by code plugins and then register them by code in the scheduler or in any different layer like the request control, which has the pre-request and post-response. What we have here is the first section, the plugin section is just, we define the plugins that we want to use in current setup. And then scheduler has this unique type of section, which is scheduling profiles, because we can potentially have more than one scheduling profile. So in this section, we define the profiles and some reference to the plugins that were defined in the previous section. So what we have here is just a config map with this scheduler configuration. We mount the config map into the deployment of EPP. Here's how it looks like, volume mounts, and then we can pass the configuration as a command line argument. So once this PR is going to be pushed, which I think is either today, later today, or tomorrow, unless there is some surprises, which I don't think there will be because it's already tested. If there are no surprises, it's going to be pushed in PR today, and then we're going to have some follow-up PRs to clean the code from all the configuration by code. That means configuration by code in several paths, also in the main, the CMD main, but also in the conformance tests, which are currently initializing their own scheduler config because they want to have some predictable behavior. Yeah, I'll stop here. I see hands, so questions.
Yeah, I have two, and I can share them in the chat just to keep track of them. But one, I'm curious how we handle plugins if multiple plugins implement the one of plugins, such as like the profile merging. You should only have one of those. But it looks like in the config, we do the generic registration where if you register this plugin, it accepts all of the extension points that plugin implements. So just curious there, what happens if both of them implement a profile merger, for instance?
Yeah. Okay. So there is a code that verifies, that validates the correctness of the configuration, and in that function parse configuration, there is some validation on this point, and of course, if there is an error, it will be logged, and I think we will exit. So you should be able to see it in the log with a clear log message explaining what is the issue.
And then second question is around the Helm chart. Have we made sure that this is easily extended to that? Because we use the nvars in the Helm chart. Just want to make sure we can map that to this config map.
Yeah. So Abdullah already mentioned this in one of the threads, I think in LLMD. So to keep you honest, I haven't looked on the Helm charts yet. But as I answered in that thread, I'll just share the same answer. I think we should just split these two threads into two different tasks. So basically, the first task is just to make GIE work with a configuration file, right? So this opens the door for cleaning all the code that is doing the configuration, and in parallel, we need to investigate the path of how do we make the Helm chart work as expected. That means that we do want to use the Helm chart to deploy these configurations. And if it's not possible using config file, we should find an alternative. But basically, I think it should be possible. We just need to find the cleanest way to do it.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. This is great. I'm glad that we're almost at the finish line. I know where we started with, like, it's extremely complicated setup, and now it's a lot more streamlined and structured, I would say. I'm glad. I'm looking forward to the point where we also get rid of the scheduler v2. I guess this is probably part of your PR as well, right? Like, we're going to get rid of all of that, and it's going to be modeled as config files.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
So
okay. Yeah. And okay, so 2 points I have. One is, what's our thinking about changing the config map at runtime? Right now, we don't reconcile that. Something to think about, because right now, if someone wants to change the configuration, they have to deploy. They have to change the configuration in the config map after it was created, and then they have to manually restart the EPP. So that's one point. The other one is regarding how we pass in the configuration via Helm. I'm not a Helm expert. I guess this is a prefix that everybody says every time we talk about Helm. Nobody is. But it seems that we can provide that as a value. Then we can pass a value file into the Helm chart, even a released Helm chart, that would add new values. So that value we would use to embed in a config map template that gets created. So Helm chart that gets released, the Helm chart that gets released includes a config map template. The value inside that template is something we probably can pass from a remote value file. So it's something that I've been researching this morning. That seems like and I verified this kind of with Greg, who's leading the installation on the LLMD side. But we need to verify that. I created this issue to track this and left some notes on my investigation.
Yeah. So what you said sounds good to me. I'm not a Helm expert as well. As you said, I think most of us are not Helm experts. Yeah, the suggestions sounds good to me. I think we should just need to explore this more, and maybe I assume Greg has more experience with Helm charts. Yeah, but I don't think it should be a real issue to solve that. I think it is solvable. What was the first question, Abdullah?
Oh, how we handle updates to the configuration at runtime.
Oh, yeah.
Something to think about. I
Yeah.
know that we're not handling it right now. It's fine. I don't think we should
Yeah.
think about it for the next release, but it's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I can share my thinking. So originally, when we started working on this project, we initially thought it would be useful for dynamic changes of configuration, but then as we made more progress with the work, we kind of settled with the static configuration. I think this is a good situation, and unless we have a clear requirement for dynamic changes of configuration, maybe we can leave that for now. I do agree that using a config map opens the door for dynamic changes, right? Because it's really easy this way to update the config. And then we don't need to restart the pod. But there are some edge cases, like what if a request, so I assume there are multiple requests that could be ongoing, and then we do need to stay like very not to interrupt in the middle of a request, right? Like if the set of filters finished and then you change, you don't want to use the new scorers, you want to do a clear separation per request. So it's like doing a snapshot of the plugin state at the beginning of the request handling, using that set of plugins, and then like if configuration changes dynamically, we do want to make sure that we complete a single request with one single configuration and not the mixture of two configurations. But it shouldn't be too hard to do that. Anyway, the bottom line, I think, as long as we don't have a requirement for this, we can keep it like as an issue for future thinking.
Yeah, Daniel, if you don't mind, my thing is on this topic, but just real quick, I agree. I think dynamic reconfig is a little spooky and could lead to some really crazy behavior. I'd prefer a redeploy until there's like a really, really strong need for dynamic. That's my thought. Daniel, all you.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand now. So with the endpoint picker, I saw in the YAML file that we're still passing in CLI arguments. I imagine environment variables are still there, and so now we have a third way to configure the endpoint picker. Or am I missing something here?
So this this configuration is specifically for the plugins. So there are some environment variables, which I think it's inevitable. So there are some things you cannot put in a config file. For example, Hugging Face token. You don't want to keep some security things in environment variables, right? In LLMD, we do have Redis used, so we have environment variables for username and password or connection string or these kinds of things. So we are going to have at least environment variables and some other way to configure things, which is a more an easier way. Like in here, we are trying to simplify the plugins configuration. So it's not a way to configure APP. It's just a way to configure the extension points. Abdullah, I see your hand. Do you want to add?
I actually think that like we can get rid of all the flags and have them as you know, parameters here. Like the endpoint picker config is, I don't know, Daniel, you know about like the component config API that we're using in all like Kubernetes components. That's pretty much what that is, what this is. So we have a separate parameter for plugins. This is the plugins configuration, but I can see, for example, a configuration for the connection, like the kube config connection, right? Like all these, like, you know, configurations or the rate and cache refresh rate and whatever. I do feel that we probably want to move away from flags to this configuration. It's probably the better way. As for environment variables, I agree. Like there are some things that like, but I don't think we don't have those in upstream. Like,
don't we have HF
Hugging
token?
Face? No.
No, for GPUs? No, GPU deployments.
No. Like
That's on
for
DLM.
yeah,
we
that's
don't
on the DLM
we don't
side.
have that on EPP. It doesn't have a need.
Oh, right. It's
We're not using the
Oh, right.
tokenizer
Upstream
Yeah.
might, because you guys pull a tokenizer, but
Yeah. This what you just mentioned, Abdullah, it's also a direction we thought about in LLMD. So having like extending this config to include all the other arguments. This is also a nice idea. Yeah, at this
with
point
defaults.
it was meant only to cover the plugins, but yeah, we can extend it.
just real quick, if we fold everything into this config map, we kind of have this secret cool kids club CRD of how to configure the inference pool on top of the inference pool. I'm a little worried about that if we put everything in here, but so then should we start having an EPP config on the inference pool because they are necessarily correlated? That makes sense to me, but then all of a sudden we need to start validating the maturity of each and every configuration field we have. So I think it's a valid question, but
We should do validations in the configuration API. I mean, the way that we're loading it, it allows you to like follow the same things we're doing for CRDs in terms of defaulting and validation. It's the same pattern, basically.
yeah.
Anyways, I think we're in a like significantly better state than before, and we can always make incremental progress.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah,
valid pain point to bring up, though, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, anyway, I think all points that were raised here in the discussion are good points we should further discuss. Just wanted to share this as a starting point. We might go with this configuration file even further and add the flags. We might decide to keep it only for plugins, but this is a good starting point, I think. Yeah, so expect this change to happen soon.
Sounds great. Cool. We got 2 minutes to spare. Bob, it looks like you have a couple items. Why don't you go ahead?
Sure. So the first one and the following one is mainly about the conformance tests, and we have decided we want to have a 0.5 release probably next week, and to have the conformance tests so that other gateway implementation can use it and to have successful reports. So the first issue I have is for the conformance tests, we want to have a Inference Gateway API version. And currently we don't have it in our current implementation. So the first point here is we propose to add the version, but we are using a custom code generated way. It's like following the gateway API. But we can also use the Kubi builder. There are some discussion on this. PR, if you can click on it, you can go to the very last comments.
1134.
Yeah, 1134, right?
Okay.
So this is this PR doesn't use the Kubi builder annotation comment, but it's actually using a custom code generator. This is largely copied from the Gateway API implementation. I think the benefits is mainly we consolidate the version in a single file. And in case in the future we have channels or to maintain different versions, we can simply just update a single file.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, I think, the start of a few things we're going to need to do here. If you look into the future, we're working towards. I'm getting a lot of noise from you, Kellen. I don't know if it's just
lots of fan noise or something.
Yeah. So if we look into the future a bit, and hopefully not too far, we're looking at a inference pool GA, which probably means a 1.0, which for sure means the other parts of this API are not going to be GA, which means we need to have some kind of way to separate GA things, stable things, from things that aren't stable. In Gateway API, we use release channels. We could do the same thing here. This would provide kind of the baseline, functionality, just copying it from Gateway API, basically. But if there's other better ways to do this, I'm very, very open to that. Shane, you have a lot of experience here. What do you think?
Yeah, we do. We've been through this. We've been through war, Rob, and man. Actually, I had a quick question before adding on to that. Is there a mechanism right now where you can disable in the inference in the EPP, you can disable inference model so it doesn't need it?
That exists now. It's open by default. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that was just a side question because I remember somebody asking me that recently, and I'm like, I haven't worked on it in a couple weeks. So, but no, I think that using the channels is good. My main concern from the experience with Gateway API would be not letting implementations doing something more to be careful about implementations treating the experimental channel as something other than experimental. That's been an interesting dilemma. But otherwise, yeah, like the channel thing has worked out for the most part for us. But I see the biggest drawback of it was things that went into experimental often got kind of treated as standard. So you got to be careful of that.
100%. One of the things that is happening in this repo, like you remember the big discussion we had about split API groups in Gateway API, and we're slowly moving that direction there. Yeah. That's happened from the start here. So there is a clearer separation. So hopefully we're on the right direction here, but I'm sure we're just bound for different kinds of pain ahead, but we'll see.
Yeah, but still, It's mostly been positive, I think. I see it as a mostly positive thing, the channels. The one thing that I feel a little less maybe positively about, it's not bad, but it definitely had more downsides, I think, has been the which isn't exactly the same. It's only tangentially related, but we also do, so we do 2 different channels, and then for each channel you can have different supportability, core and extended. That has been interesting. That has been an interesting problem because of things like having dead fields. Like CRDs don't have a really great way with like to deal with the unknown fields that can show up. So like if you have something that has like a field that is not used by an implementation, you don't necessarily have a great way. Or no, I think I'm mixing things up. The experimental thing is actually the problem with the unknown fields, because you can have different versions of the CRDs. But in any case, if you decide to go, have you guys already decided whether you're going to do like core versus extended or anything like that?
So far, everything's been core. At some point, maybe we need something to be extended. But the longer we can live without that, the happier I'll be.
Yep,
I think
that's a good way to, that's a succinct way to put what I was trying to get at. Just try to stay away from the extended if you can. That's been a little bit less an obvious win. It's had its ups and downs.
I think we kind of dodged that by making everything so it's personally extendable. But yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but
Cool.
like, yeah,
Go
but
ahead,
for
Tom.
this PR, actually, I didn't add the channel support. So the code generator, the custom code generator may looks a bit overkilled. Yeah, just want to add that point.
Yeah, like I think that's the context that helps here. Like it is overkill for the current point in time, but if we agree that we're moving towards release channels, it makes sense. If we say we're not going to move to release channels, then we should find a simpler way. But I think if we're agreeing we're heading towards release channels, then this seems correct to me. But open to more feedback.
I think release channels is the only way that we can really increment out what we think is stable in GA versus what is not. Like the single tenant workflow, I feel is stable, but multi-tenant, I think is still in development. It's very much still in development, actually. So release channel seems the most obvious path to say this is good and ready and stable, and this we're still working on. I don't know how else we might express that. Cool.
Cool. Yeah. There is still like something I am working on this PR. Probably needs to resolve more comments. I will ping you guys if I need the review. Then comes to the like a second point I have is again for the v0.5 release, there is one minor PR needed. This is like add the version to the conformance test report. It should be simple. And also there are 2 successful reports. One is from GKE Gateway and the other one is from Istio. So I still put them in draft because I still need to figure out which version we want to put in, because if we want to put in the v0.5 release, I think from Rob's suggestion, we should put the version of the conformance reports at v.5 -dev. I think that's the only missing part. But yeah, that's it. I think, and then I still want to check if we can have the RC today or at least tomorrow, because I'm still in a hotel, so probably there will be probably some surprise. I will if we have the RC this week, are we good to have the official release for 0.5 for conformance tests next week?
My like highest priority item, at least to just for us also to align with other dependent projects, is to have the Helm chart working. So we need to prioritize that.
Sorry, what Helm chart? The Helm chart for Inference pool, or is there another
Yeah,
one?
because it's released with the release now.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is it? I missed. Did it get broken somehow?
No. We want to be able to pass in the configuration file as a quote unquote flag when we create. Like we want to provide an external configuration, not just so that is the only thing that I think for me is the highest priority for this release.
Okay. How far out? Like the thing that I'm really wanting here is a stable target for conformance tests, right? So that when implementations submit conformance reports, instead of pointing at like a dev, a commit hash or something, they can point at a minor release. And I think now that we have a couple passing, I'm very curious about Danian's next update, but now that we have a couple passing implementations that suggest that our conformance tests are relatively stable, hopefully pretty stable. But yeah, I don't want to release just for this. So if there's one more thing we can squeeze in, yeah, that works. I just want to, I don't know what you have in mind for timeline.
Is a release candidate good enough, or do you have to have a release?
A release candidate might work. Yeah.
And then for the full release, maybe we wait until that Helm update is done.
Yeah, a release candidate seems like a reasonable compromise here.
But would that be adding a feature then between the release candidate and the release? I mean, if that's the case, then we should do a second release candidate before releasing, right?
It's not a feature. That's just the Helm chart flag. That's it.
Oh.
Wait, I mean, but I still kind of think a second release candidate, even if it's really brief, would be useful. Just like ideally, the delta between like release candidate and final release is near zero.
Yeah.
But I think that can accomplish everything we're describing here. Like you have RC1 that handles conformance. You have a fast follow of RC2 for Helm, and then you have final release, and hopefully, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I would be in favor of as well. RC1 with the conformance, go to RC2 with the Helm, and we should be able to do a quick turnaround for that.
Sounds good. So then we want our RC this week, tomorrow, today.
Yep.
Cool.
I think we should at least let the config API complete the PR. The changes that uses config API for configuring. So we don't necessarily need the cleanup merged, but we do need the config API.
Cool. That works. Yeah, we'll talk off. We can talk offline of who's going to run it. It might make sense near. It would be your first time, I think. And then if you want to wait on the config API, then I think that times out well. So.
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
Let's think
and
about it.
Whoever releases in the milestone, there should be a bug issue associated with, because I cut the last release and there was honestly one or two bugs that I came across and created issues for, and I kind of just manually worked through them. So even if they're not fixed, at least familiarize yourself with the bug and go from there.
Yeah.
Cool. Danian, I think it's you.
Yeah, just pretty quick update. So I've got all but one of the conformance tests passing for K Gateway. Yeah, about it.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess to add to that, so so I'm targeting, beginning maybe worst case mid next week that I've got a K Gateway PR that's polished and ready for review. So potentially, a week of review. So we'll call it, under 2 weeks. We should have K Gateway ready, and then I need to work with the community to see when, if we get kind of the timing of cutting a release, but should be able to do that shortly after as well. So here in the next few weeks, we should have a K Gateway released with conformance passing, but then obviously we need to kind of manage the logistics of like, okay, do we wait to cut the release for Inference pool to GA? So some of that stuff, but we'll come through that.
Near, you got a hand.
Yeah. A question, I think, for Rob, but if anyone else knows the answer, then please chime in. So Rob, I do remember that we have a contributor from Alibaba Cloud who tagged you something related to conformance. They ran the conformance tests for their use of GIE. Do you know what's the status? Do the tests?
I think
properly?
I think what it was, I think Bob followed up on that one. They ran into an issue, and Bob had just fixed that issue like the same day, and I don't think we've heard any updates since then. Bob, I think you were commenting on that issue, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yes, I think they said they can run the conformance test, but yeah, but there is no more updates from there, I think.
Yeah. So maybe we can ping them, to see their status. So if we're already have some successful reports here, maybe we can add more and more. The more the better.
Okay. Yeah, I can ping them to see.
I talked with John earlier, and Agent Gateway is 1 or 2 weeks out from getting their conformance report in as well. So yeah, we should have more flowing in pretty quickly.
Sweet.
Nice.
Yeah, Rob, to that point too, I know Shane, maybe you're already aware of it, but I know Shane, you brought up some concern in the past about non-Envoy based implementation. So if you weren't aware, Agent Gateway is a non-Envoy implementation.
Yeah, it's based on zTunnel. I did see that. That's good. It's good to have a little bit more diversity. I'd like to see. I'm glad to see that happening. I would like to see. It's been hard to get Nginx to the table, and I think we just need to see like what's going on there. But I'm wondering, since Flynn is kind of joining into the AI Gateway thing, if Buoyant will be there. So that diversity is growing, and that is great to see. Is the Agent Gateway then? So I'm only just recently familiar with the Agent Gateway because I know Eton. We've known each other for a while, and he was telling me about it. But I know that it's based on zTunnel, and I thought it was like A2A MCP. Is it that plus? So is it doing that, and then also it's doing like VLLM routing? Is it like box of all? Is it just everything?
Yeah, I mean, it supports multiple agent protocols. I'm not very involved in the project, and so
Okay, yeah, that's fair then.
I mean, the intent, the original focus was more on AI gateway functionality than inference, but it's meant now. I mean, it's expanding the scope as it evolves, but. Also, with that said, kind of circling back with your original topic of the working group, we've had some internal discussions about the working group. I would imagine that we're going to have someone from Solo that would like to be represented in that AI working group. So we'll circle back with you on that as well.
Yeah, very cool.
Sweet. I'll leave it open for any last comments, just for a few seconds. Cool. Thanks all. Have a
Mace
great
Windu
week.
was the best Jedi.
Whoa. Whoa,
that's
that's
my
a
final
hot
comment.
take. All right. And we'll discuss that next week. All right.
Top topic for next week. All right. Cheers, everybody.
Bye all.